Hey Sergio,
Hey,
welcome to Harajuku Data Lake. This is our second episode. Last week we talked a little bit about GitLab and the database incident that they had on January 31st. Just a quick follow-up for that. On February 11th, they did release a official post-mortem of that outage. So if you want to check it out, that will be in the show notes. Today, instead of a more technical topic, we're going to be talking about something slightly more philosophical. We're going to be talking about work, jobs, and careers. We're going to shoot for 20 minutes, so let's see how this goes. So, Sergio, first question, why do you work?
mm, mm, so difficult, right? Well, I think it depends of the moment of your life, no? That you have some kind of ambitions or and others. For example, when you are young, you start working, you get a salary, probably it's the first one, and in that moment you want just a little bit of money. In the moment that you got more experience, I think you want some kind of recognition, and you want to have challenge, and you want to have a good kind of boss or leader who you can learn from, a good team. And maybe later you want maybe a bit more calm, no? In the moment that you get older, you don't have so much energy. I think in that moment you decide, no, to work by another reason. There is a video of the Alibaba founder. It's very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
talking about the different ages. No, he was talking something like when you are from 20 to 30, you have to learn from a boss, a good guy who is able to teach you, and then be a professional. No, in the moment that you are the 30 to 40, in that moment you want to be create your own company. Later, you want to teach to the new people, no, to the new workers. So I think it. Why do you work? I think it's related to the time, no? It's like, but
Mm.
I guess that everybody needs to work. That's very important. Everybody needs to work because you realize yourself, and then you decide, no? If you worry more about the salary, you worry more about to be near your office. You work less hours. You work in something you like. You work in something you don't like. But it depends. It depends the person. Why do you work, Maurice?
Okay, I was just about to ask you the exact same question again. Uh, so why do so I've been living in Japan for about 11 years, and for me, a big part of the reason that I work is to be able to stay in Japan and to maintain the lifestyle that I do. So I don't need a giant salary, but I do prioritize location. I also, the reason I work where I do right now is because I want to focus my career more on engineering,
Mm.
and I want to challenge myself and I want to learn more. So I've done a few different jobs in Japan. I think the first job that I did in Japan was as a coordinator for international relations with the JET program, and that was not. It's a great title. It's a great title, but it ended up being working in a small town office in rural Japan, which was a really interesting experience for a year, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to make a career out of. After that, I came to Tokyo and I worked at a telecommunications firm, which was definitely closer to what I wanted to be doing. I've always loved networks, and it was really, really interesting to work at a global network operations center. I went back to school. After that, I worked at Microsoft for a while, and I've sort of through this it's been for me it's been a progression of jobs that get progressively more technical and closer to I over time I get a better understanding of what I really want to be doing. And as I get a better understanding of what I really want to be doing, I get closer to the jobs that I really like.
Yeah, for me, for example, it's quite important when you create a product that the people they really use. I don't really like to be in a company that you feel like nobody's gonna use that. Even you have a good salary, even you have good conditions. I want to create something in the world, not to say, oh, maybe to think about that the world become better because you were there, no? And the people is using your software and they are enjoying and they really like it. And I like this kind of of thing. Yeah. One thing that you said before about to be here in
Hmm.
Japan, and I never got this experience, is to be in a real Japanese company, And I think that's very nice. I think that's an experience, and I love to have new experience. And well, I really miss in some way, But after all, because I know from so many friends how they are, nobody recommend me to go to a Japanese company, but maybe it's a good experience. Yeah, yeah. Who knows?
I think I mean, obviously, it really depends on the company, but certainly a lot of the major employers that a lot of people work at aren't particularly highly recommended, but there are certainly better companies to work for, I believe. But I want to go back to briefly something you said right there about working on a product that has an impact on the world, because that's sort of one of the things I wanted to talk about is how important in choosing the company you work for and the job you do is not just the salary and the things that you get out of it, but how much impact you have on the world. So, and I like to think, I'm opposed to war, so I never want to work for a military contractor. Similarly, maybe I'm not a big fan of Facebook, so that's not a company I would really consider working for. On the other hand, a company like Google, I look at their values, I look at the products that they're creating, and I say, wow, that's a company I would love to work for. Similarly with Tesla. So, what about you? How important is that? When you're balancing things like work-life balance and salary and the technologies you get to work with, how important is the impact of what you're actually doing?
Yeah, yeah, I understand you. But I think we have the keyword here is opportunity, and I think that we have the opportunity to choose the company. There are other people, so many people that they don't really have the opportunity to choose that, so they have to choose from whatever is left, no? In our case, I think that we are lucky and we can do that. So
Mm.
in my case, in all the four companies, I have choose the company. I am happy. I never regret to be in one of them. And I think it's very important. Yes, for me it's very important, but I have also this kind of power to decide if I want to stay or not. And yeah, so I think it's very important, really important. Yeah, but I can choose. Other people they don't. So
Right, of course, of course. But are you choosing based what do you use to decide whether you want to work for a company? Are you choosing based on salary? Are you choosing based on the technology stack you get to work with? Are you choosing based on the role?
probably the salary is not important. The salary at the end is just a measure that they give you as a value. So it means, okay, we really think that you are critical, that you are a very good employee. We are going to raise your salary. That's interesting. I think you have to trust in the company. They have to trust you. And so it's a bidirectional relationship. So in this way,
Hmm.
you are going to have to find out what happens. I think that you should never try to arrive to a company and try to be like the best. Probably in the moment that you are there 6 months, 1 year, in that moment you are gonna realize that, and they are gonna realize about you. So try to be humble in this meeting. But what you asked me about,
Well, you should try. You should try to be the best, but
yes, yes,
you
yes. I'm not.
should.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you don't have to try to um like to be the unique, to be selfish. You don't have to be like, oh,
Mm.
everybody depends on me. No, you have to be another one. Do your best job. Try to fit the company. You have to be good with the client, with the company, and with you yourself. Okay, I think this is in order. And then
Mm.
I think you have to be the best. Of course, you have to be the best with the company, but with yourself. That's of course, but this different that when you have to arrive to a company and the first day, oh, I have more experience. You are nobody. No, no, no. The company that you arrive is gonna teach you a lot, and you have to be open mind to understand that. And answering your
Mm.
question, and I like that one is, I think I really appreciate what is the teamwork, and teamwork means your coworkers. If you are in a company that the coworkers they are like that, I'm not gonna say a big company, but like a big company. It depends.
Uh-huh.
It depends on the company. But if you feel that you are every day doing a kind of routine that you cannot talk with your coworkers, and no, try to understand this word, but I like to be like a family. it's not a family, it's a business, but it's the
Hmm.
kind of feeling like uh, you talk with the people, you can do something else with that people. I think that it's like a relationship. Like when you are with a girlfriend, and in that moment, or your partner, and in that moment you break up, and I like to keep in contact in the meaning of that that's a person. It's not something that happened that has been 2 years and that's
Hmm.
gone. And no, for me it's something more than this. So, but it's another kind of relation. But I think that the company is the same. You have to be like respect, no, this relationship, because these guys, they hire you because they needed something from you and you needed something from them. As you said before, you are in some way, okay, by the visa to be here, and I am not so worried about this. If I think if I cannot stay in one company, I can choose another one. But I can choose another one, or I can move. Or I can go back to Spain or even USA or wherever. It's because I am good doing my job. And this means to be a professional, okay? But that's another talk.
Hmm.
But I appreciate a lot the kind of team, the people that they are there, and that you are more than just an employee. And you are in a room and you don't talk with nobody else. I like this kind of projects that we are doing now.
Just for the audience, both Sergio and I happen to work at the same company. So, uh, one of the actually, I wanted to dig in there a little bit because there is, I think, this idea of the engineer working as a single unit, so that there's the idea that engineers should don't have to be social. And one of the things that I really love about our work environment is that we are very social. We talk all the time about work, about non-work, about architecture. We learn, we teach each other, and then we also, when we need to focus, we can focus as well, of course. But I think, especially when it comes to remote work, something that people deal with a lot is you don't actually get to see your coworkers face to face, and you have to sort of create that time for just talking about things. So even though we are engineers working on a development team, being social is really important part of that.
Yeah, before this, we are human, no? We are person, we are individuals, so I think we have to consider each other. Yeah. But
Mm.
I think that in the kind of startup, this kind of model of company, or the culture that we're talking about, I think that it's very normal that everybody is in the same room, everybody is a kind of full stack, everybody has to talk with everybody, So I think it's more normal that it happens in a small company than a large one, no? Because in a large one you have the policies, the privacy, the different departments. It's something very important. If we talk about a business, there are a lot of politics. And politics in the big companies, they are worse than the small ones, because a small company cannot handle this situation. If you are creating a bad mood, they are gonna fire you. That's over. You have been in the company
Mm.
at most 4 years. That's a startup. So yeah, in a company like this, it's gonna be quite different, the kind of politicals. But in all of them, there are politics.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When I have worked in larger companies, those have definitely, at least in my experience, been, obviously social. I mean, it's not like you don't talk to your coworkers at all, but it's been a less intense social experience for me. Um, okay, so we've talked a little bit about why you work. I think the next topic we want to talk about is what makes a good job.
I, I think I think we have been talking a little bit about what makes a good job, no? Because a good job is the job that you decide. If you are really in that job because you can decide that's the best
Mm.
job for you. Because I could say, no, I don't like this job, but I like the other one. So I mean, it's very subjective. I think that what we said
Mm.
right now, teamwork, a company that is really caring about you and he sponsors you visa, the kind of, yeah, yes.
Oh, okay. So it's sort of like,
Yeah, I think so. I think we cannot talk so much about this. It's very, very personal. So if you are happy, if you like challenge and you have challenge every day, that's good. If you are in a routine and you like the routine, that's fine. You don't have to criticize the others because you don't really know the situation that they arrive there. No, so there are so many people that, not talking about computers, but other situations, that it's a good job. Well, maybe they didn't decide, but the job is good. It says, but they didn't decide.
Yeah, actually, that's sort of interesting. I mean, in a sense, a good job is a job that you decide to
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
And a lot of people,
that's it.
unfortunately, don't really have the ability or options to choose, don't have a lot of choices. So they do end up in jobs that they aren't deciding to do. But
Yeah. I think it's more about opportunities. I think that the key is more opportunity than to choose. Yeah, it's opportunity. I think everything is an opportunity because there are companies, and I have seen these companies that they spend so much money just training people that they didn't have the knowledge in that case. And I have seen in Spain things like that. But it's fine. It's fine. I mean, I don't have to judge this situation. But yeah,
hmm. So just a bad match between the people in the company, and
exactly.
even though it might be a good job, it's not a job for that person.
Exactly. Or it's a very good job, but the person he doesn't deserve because he doesn't have what he needed before arrive to the company. But he learned. Why? Well, because he had the opportunity. He was a friend of someone that let him inside. That's perfect, fine. But
Mm.
I mean, you don't really need to have all the requirements. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Every situation is unique. But
Mm.
I told you this because I have seen in Spain. It was well terrible. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so I think the third thing I wanted to talk briefly about is careers and what makes a career. I know in my particular experience, I see the series of jobs that I have as forming this journey where it starts at very general. I knew after I graduated from college that I wanted to come to Japan, but I didn't have a very good sense of what I wanted to do. I didn't even really have a very good sense of what I wanted to study in college. But as I've worked in different companies and as I've explored my own interests, I've really begun to understand where my true interests lie. And given that, I see my jobs as sort of slowly moving more and more in the direction that I want them to move in. Um, and in a sense, in one sense, the way when I describe it that way, I think it makes a lot of sense. Another way, if you describe it slightly differently, it could be that I'm just doing a completely random series of jobs that aren't actually related to each other. I see the relation in my own life, and I see it sort of turning into a career, but it's certainly not a career in the sense that I graduated college knowing exactly what I wanted to do and pursued that and became extremely successful at that one thing. So, what's your career look like?
Are you asking me?
Yes, this is the Ask Sergio podcast. So.
No, I think it's very interesting what you have done. I think that in Spanish you can say a sentence that is todos los caminos llevan a Roma. That means that all the ways they go to Rome. That was the center in the imperial Rome. So
all roads lead to Rome.
that one, perfect. So
wait, what does that mean? What does that mean?
It means that even you take a different path, you are gonna arrive to the same place, no? So it means that there are different ways to do a single thing. So you arrive to a position that is like engineer position, and you didn't do this kind of normal the normal path, no? Everything that everybody told you, oh, you have to study the degree of this, you have to start to a single job like this, you have to enter to a big company. All of this, I mean, you have done your own path, and that's very, very interesting, very interesting. So, if you ask me about me, well, my case is maybe a bit different than that. Is when I was 8 years old, I already was like I love the computers and I started doing a lot of stuff myself. When I was, for example, 15 years old, I started to do some video games, so Flash.
Mm-hmm.
And well, yeah, I did a lot of security things. And later, well, I went to the degree. I went to the kind of degree that I wanted, no? So I choose and I had it very clear what I wanted to be. I knew that for the rest of my life, like almost 40 years, I was going to be working in something that I had passion for it, no? So my hobby and
Mm.
my profession is the same. And so I decide, and maybe that's why I have this kind of knowledge, experience, tracking, no, all the situation.
I mean, in my situation, I was definitely, I knew that I loved computers from when I was a kid. And, I was always, I collected old computers as a kid. I enjoyed programming in BASIC and
Sure.
everything. But for some reason, and I'm not really sure how this came to be, I got this idea in my head that that would always be a hobby. And then I would study something that had that was more real. So I was going to study something like international relations or
Yeah.
economics, and then I was going to use my hobby and apply my hobby to those fields, but it wasn't necessarily going to be my specialization. And over time, my perspective has changed a lot, where now I see what was my hobby as essentially what, at least for me now, should be the primary focus of my career.
One question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that in that moment when you choose to more kind of international affairs, whatever, you were
Mm-hmm.
you were like pushed by the society? Because I think that it used to happen, no? Like, oh, you are gonna study computers, nobody use that, don't care about, no? I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
It was definitely, I mean, I did take, I took 300 level computer science courses and computer graphics and all that and programmed in Java and C++ when I was in college. But I think it was around my sophomore year, and it was kind of like, it was a very small college, and so a very small computer science program. And computer science, it was kind of like it was 10 white nerds in a room. And I guess I just didn't see myself as, maybe I looked like them, but I didn't really feel like they were part of my culture.
Yeah,
So,
I see.
and so, maybe if I had ended up at a different school, I might have ended up studying something totally different. But, from where I was at that particular time, I was like, yeah, this is cool, but I can study this anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think the society makes you decide something. So in a lot of cases,
Right. Well, and you think you're making the decision on your own.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly.
you don't feel the pressure. You don't feel the pressure from society. It just sort of happens.
That's right. I love the kind of social engineering and all this stuff. And when you are tricked, you don't know that you are tricked. And this
Mm.
happens the same in the society. When you are being told that you want something, and at the end you want this something, you don't really realize that it's other person who decides for you. This is all the marketing that we have every day. We see something, oh, I would like to take a coffee in Starbucks. Why? Why? Because it's cool. Because it's I don't know, whatever you want, but a lot of times it's not that you have the necessity. It's that someone gave you that that thought, and you just got as yourself, no? So here I think that the society
Mm.
is telling you like, oh, you have to be a doctor, because if you are not a doctor, you're not gonna have a good salary, or you have to be a businessman because here is impressive, no? It depends, and I think by country we see these statistics like, I don't know, in USA there are more business people, in Spain there are more I don't know, whatever, constructor builders, and in Japan there are
Hmm.
more salarymen. I don't know. I don't know the numbers, so I cannot talk about this. But I think that the society itself tells you what you have to do. About Japan, we can talk a lot about what is the role of a person, the husband, the wife in the society. So it happens the same in Spain. How you are gonna be cool? Oh, you are smart, do this. Oh, you are not very smart, okay, take this kind of education so you don't have a difficult life, no? You are
Mm.
influenced by a lot of external factors in your life, and this happens. And I think that it's very nice that you realize later and say, oh, even this now I'm gonna try to change, I'm gonna move to this direction. And I think that's perfect. And I think it's very like you learn a lot from, because it's not the end, it's all the way to arrive to the end. When a a startup is business, is successful, it's not so important that it's successful. I think, from my point of view, it's more the way until you found the startup and the moment that you sell the company. In that moment, it is everything that happened these 3, 4, 5 years or 1 year or whatever. In that moment is what the experience is like. Wow, I had one guys that they stay at night fixing this problem. We went to beers and drinking that day. We just tried this plan and it failed. All this kind of experience is what is really important. Everything else is okay. You run in a company and well, big one, but that's all. That's
Yeah, I mean, so the experience of a startup is like challenging yourself and being part of this team and trying to do something and really pushing yourself hard.
yeah. Well, at the end, that's the idea. Innovation, but innovation with a lot of risk, no? So you have to choose. There are people, and it's also very, very interesting. There are people that they could never be a founder of a company because they don't have the skills, but not the skills as knowledge, skills as a person, like aptitude to really to be under pressure, for example, or to accept a new challenge, or to accept some kind of risk. Well, the investors, they are gonna make you a very, very difficult situation for you to discover if you are good enough. Because at the end, once you sell the company, okay, even you are rich, whatever, I don't care about the money, is you are gonna continue doing something else. So your life is the problem. The question is, okay, where is the end, no? What is to be successful, no? Because if or we are saying right now, what means, no, this can you plan a career? It's like you want to be successful, you want to be happy. Okay, what does it mean? Does it mean to have 3 houses, or does it mean to have a lot of friends, or to have a wife and kids, or to be alone and I don't know. So it's just okay. What is your goal, no? What is and that's another topic very interesting. Is what is your dream, no? What do you life for?
So we talked a little bit about pressures of society and what society expects from you. And since we are Harajuku Data Lake, I think we should at least say a little bit about what the pressures of Japanese society on people. And I think, we talked about, working for money, working to learn, working to be part of a team, working to challenge yourself. I think a big part of work is social identity. It's this idea that a big part of being an adult is having a job. It's how you define yourself. It's where you spend most of your time. So, especially in Japan, first you're a baby, then you're a student. At some point, after you graduate, you become a company worker, and then at some point you become unemployed. And there's this kind of cycle where it's incredibly important to be employed when you are of employment age. And if you kind of fall off that track, it's bad. So, especially in Japan, there's this really strong pressure to study incredibly hard in high school to pass the entrance exams to good universities. Once you're into a good university, you're quite likely to graduate. I mean, as long as you show up for the final exam and take the test. So you're quite likely to graduate. So university students in Japan have a lot of time to explore other activities other than academics. But once you graduate, it's also the last 2 years of university are occupied with the job search process. And you really, if you got into a good university, you really want to have an offer from at least one, but hopefully maybe 3 or 4 really big name companies. And once you have an offer from a really big name company, which you might get literally a year before you get hired, then you're fine. You get hired, you spend the first year or 2 as kind of a trainee. After that, you move up the seniority chain over time. Once you get to your 40s, you'll probably see a really big pay bump. And then when you're 64 or 65, you retire.
You are talking if you are a Japanese person in a Japanese company. If you are a foreign person that comes from outside to a Japanese company, you won't be able never to be promoted. You are gonna arrive with probably good salary, good conditions, but they are never gonna understand that you can really understand the culture as them, and I think they are never give you the kind of task.
I think it really depends. I definitely know some. Well, Japanese companies are changing a lot right now. So, for example, it used to be impossible to get promoted as a woman. Like 20 years ago, there were no women in management positions in Japanese companies. Over the past 10 years, that's really, the government has put a lot of pressure on companies to change their ways. So now you see women at giant Japanese companies getting into management positions. And I think the same way that's also affected foreigners. So my friends from like China or the Philippines or other parts of Asia who have gone to Japanese universities, they're going through the exact same system where, they're getting a job offer at the end of their college degree and they're entering Japanese companies. And they're entering Japanese companies not as foreigners, but as totally normal workers. So, on the other hand, I wouldn't recommend that for you because you're coming from a totally different place where you're already you're not trying to start at the very, very bottom as a new grad and slowly, spending 10, 15, 20 years to get up to a moderate salary. Yeah. So it's a really, really different situation.
Well, is it true that in the Japanese companies, the workers, they used to do like everything? So even you are a very professional architect, you have to clean the dishes like everybody in the kitchen?
At the Japanese companies I've worked at, they have had janitorial staff.
Okay.
So it's okay. But I mean,
But we know that in some companies.
Okay. I mean, the very first place I worked was a city office, so there definitely there was. I was at the Board of Education, so these are people that it's like the school board in the U.S. And I remember in the fall there would just be some days where it was like, okay, we have this center, the grass needs to get cut, so we're all gonna go out and we're gonna cut the grass.
Wow.
And that was like 3 days.
I see.
But yeah, no, when I've worked at large Japanese companies actually, I'm really the wrong person to ask because I haven't ever really worked in the U.S., but in my experience of large Japanese companies and large subsidiaries of U.S. companies in Japan, it's been fairly similar.
I see. Yeah, so maybe we can conclude that depends of the company. At the end, it's not so much about the country, but can be very related to the company. And well, some companies, and what I have listened from some friends, like for example Rakuten, even they try to be very international. At the end, they are really, really Japanese companies from our point of view.
Yeah. All right. So we've talked a little bit about work. Send us your feedback, send us your questions, and we're trying to keep this episode short, so let's cut it off here. And thank you everyone for listening. Also, I wanted to call out our listeners from last week, so thank you for tuning in. We had Matthias, and we had Sergio's girlfriend, so yay!
Yeah.
All right, talk to everybody next week.